Hello again, Cons here. Today I have 6 or so advanced tips for fighting Alatreon. These are things I didn't know or understand straight away, but once I got them they made the fight a lot easier. You may know some of them, you'll probably know a couple of them, but hopefully not all of them. Either way, we'll see. Oh, and I don't usually plug in videos and I won't make a habit of it, I promise, but if you've been enjoying the videos I've been putting out lately or you found them useful and you want to support their creation, a single dollar at my Patreon, linked in the description, goes a long way and gets you all of the perks and stuff. So yeah, feel free if you have the means to do so. It means a lot. So anyway, I want to start off with something that a lot of people will already know, but quite a few won't. I'll get to the more novel stuff in a second, but it's quite important to note that Alatreon takes 20% more damage when it's in rage mode. I know a couple monsters have this kind of thing, like Teostra is a notable example, but like for example, you'll see on screen now I did 300 damage roughly when I did my attack normally. I've then enraged it by using the 3 claw swipes, and afterwards, when I do the attack, I get 360 something damage. That is a 20% boost to my DPS. I've seen a lot of people who need this one. People complaining that they can get to the element DPS to topple it and they can break both the horns, but the problem is they can't kill it in time before it swaps to the wrong element and then party wipes the entire team. If you want to eke out that extra DPS, 20% is nothing to sneeze at, so make sure you keep it enraged as much as possible using the 3 flint shots, using flint shots and the 3 claw swipe techniques. The next thing I want to quickly go over are a couple of Alatreon's moves that I see randoms not really punishing correctly or understanding how to punish. The Frost and Fire Breaths are pretty good examples. I'm showing Frost now. If you have enough health to tank the damage over time, the opening at the end is long enough that you can do like a strong attack, like a level 3 with a greatsword for example. And if you start at the beginning, you can do a full TCS with slinger ammo and get back pretty much all of the health you lose. Of course it does depend on the weapon that you play, but yeah, same goes for the Fire Breath. The Big Fire Blast is another move that I see handled really poorly online. Mostly I see people running from it, shielding it, or like trying to Superman it. It's very similar to Velkhana's Ice Pillar, although there's not as huge gaps between them. Basically, you dodge the center one, either you iframe it or you dodge away and then run in. Either way, dodge the center one and then run into the middle before the next one goes off, and then boom, its head is right there for you to hit. And just a very quick note about the electrical bolt attacks. For the line ones, if you're running towards or away from Alatreon, you tend to get horizontal, and if you're running to the side, you get vertical. That's not consistent every time though, just kind of a general trend I've noticed. It might not even be accurate, but it's just something I observed. And the lightning bolts themselves, the ones that where he spawns a bunch of them on the ground and they hit, initially he does that wind up with his head and you see the particles moving on the field, and if they're moving away from Alatreon, the bolts spawn close to it. If those particles are going towards Alatreon, the bolts spawn far away from it. Based on the particles movements, you know exactly where the bolts are going to be, and so you know how to punish or play it safe accordingly. So now to some of the good stuff. I'm going to have a little mini section here where we just talk about different ways to dunk Alatreon's flying mode. There is the obvious one that most people probably know by now, and that is that while it's not enraged, while you can still do a flint shot on Alatreon in the air will bring it to the ground. This one is fairly self-explanatory. The next way is to use your flash pods. A lot of people know that obviously you can flash monsters out of the air. You get once per hunt with Alatreon. However, I've seen a lot of confusion on how to actually get it to work consistently. Basically, the way the mechanics work, and I didn't know this for a while too, is it only works while Alatreon is not in rage mode. He cannot be enraged. If he's enraged, then you won't be able to dunk him, and also during certain attacks he is invulnerable to this. Bring yourself a ghille mantle or smoke bombs. If Alatreon loses sight of all players in the room, so this one's really applicable for solo play, not multiplayer as much. But yeah, if Alatreon loses sight of all the players in the room, loses aggro, then it will land to search for you, and it won't fly back up again once it finds you. So next, I'd like to talk about the hit zone values of Alatreon. We have these values courtesy of Death Cream and data miners and so thank you guys very much. You can see obviously the Severin Blunt on the head and the neck are crazy, as we'd expect, but anyway, we're not worried about that right now. Take a look at the elemental hit zones. First of all, to do elemental damage, your arms are your best bet. So if you find that you're struggling to topple, then focus the arms rather than the head. But more importantly, take a look at the multipliers at the top. Elemental state is when you've toppled over, you've done the elemental topple and it's on the ground before it powers back up again. Those are kind of the base values. You'll see fire, ice and dragon all pretty solid there, water and thunder slightly less so. Then during fire state, you'll see that fire itself does no damage, ice does bonus damage, water does a bit less, thunder does much less, and dragon does only 10% of what it could be doing. Ice state is very similar, except fire and water swap with ice and thunder. Dragon is consistently at 10% of its optimal value. And during dragon state, you can again, I don't know, I'm just reading out the numbers now, but dragon state gets better dragon 0.7, whereas ice and fire go down to 0.5 each. So what does this mean? Well, for most weapons, bringing dragon I don't think is a very good idea for multiplayer runs. It's not going to be better than bringing the right element anyway. Even if you bring ice to an ice hunt, you're going to be doing no ice damage. If you brought dragon instead, you'd only be doing 10% of that damage anyway. So it's barely an increase, if I'm being honest with you. And while you do get a slight buff in dragon mode, you're still doing 0.5, 50% in dragon mode with the right element. And in both phases, both dragon modes, fire and ice both do 0.5. So for sake of argument, let's say it spends half its time in dragon mode and half its time in the other mode, alternatingly. So when it's in the correct mode for your element, so if it's in ice and you've brought fire, you'll be doing an average of 0.8, 1.1 plus 0.5 over 2. And if it's the opposite, if it's the wrong element, you'll be doing an average of 0.25. Nothing during regular phase, and then 0.5 during dragon phase, which is half the time, so 0.25. Compare this to the corresponding value of dragon, which is 0.4 in both phases. So you do 0.25 and 0.8 when you bring element, and 0.4 and 0.4 when you bring dragon. That sounds almost like it's equal, except when you consider the fact that you're going to be breaking the horns to try and lock it into the correct element for the majority of the hunt. So really that 0.8 does a lot more work than that 0.25. However, if you do find that you're never breaking the horns, then I can understand bringing dragon element to a degree, and it is nice as a sort of failsafe. But yeah, no, overall I do not recommend dragon at all, and this is the reason. And lastly, I want to talk about the scaling factor, which is something that I think most people won't know. This is probably the most niche aspect of all, and it's not going to really change the way you play that much. However, there are a few considerations to make. I have the table on screen now. Don't worry about the numbers too much, just look at the modifiers. Basically, when you deal elemental damage, imagine it was being times by 1.1. It's not being multiplied at all. However, you can sort of imagine that it's getting a 10% bonus towards the elemental DPS check. So if the DPS check took 100 damage, not that it works that way, it would take 10% less with Greatsword. That's not exactly how the numbers work out, but you kind of get the idea, and that's what these modifiers mean. It's there to sort of balance it so the slower weapons don't get punished, and the faster hitting weapons that deal mostly elemental damage still have to put in a bit of work to topple elementally. Balances things out a bit. The most notable thing here is the charge blade. The files do not much, which makes sense. When you do like an SAED, you're doing 2000 damage of pure raw ice with elemental files, so they have to nerf it. However, what this means is that regular charge blade being at 1, Savage Axe essentially is like an instant de-element. It's an incredibly powerful way to de-element it. If you haven't given it a shot, mess around with the Savage Axe if you play charge blade against Alatreon, and just see how fast you can take it out of its elemental mode. And so that's, I think, it. There are some rumors going around that it novas like in a fixed time interval. My testing said that wasn't the case, but it might be more complicated than that. But yeah, I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know if it's true or not. I haven't been able to verify it. But yeah, hopefully these tips helped. Take advantage of as many of them as you can to make your Alatreon hunt as easy as possible. If you know any hunters struggling with the fight, or you just want to get your team to do better, then feel free to link them here and they can learn this too. I also have a more general sort of explanation, I don't know what the explosion, an explanation of all of Alatreon's mechanics, from the horn breaks to the novas and how it all sort of interplays. So you can have a look at that too and maybe direct them there if they need the help. But yeah, between these two videos, I think I've mostly covered all of the sort of general information about Alatreon, and it's really just punishes for various moves that you need to work out now. So yeah, good luck with that with your preferred weapon. And I hope you get lots of nice wins. Take it easy. Bye bye.